we can't just have someone with that much talent walking around not waving a Nobel Prize in their hand. It doesn't work that way, it's wrong. Happy Women in Translation Month to everyone who celebrates, and it should be everyone who celebrates. My name's Cara, if you've never been here before, and today I'm going to be talking about some recommendations that I have for books by women that have been translated from a myriad of languages into English, which is my primary reading language. And I'm very excited to talk about these because these include some of my favourite books of all time. I read translated books year-round, but I do think it's so lovely to have a month in the year that's solely dedicated to this project of discovering more authors, especially ones in languages that you wouldn't otherwise necessarily have read. So I'm very, very happy to be highlighting that in today's video. So if you have any recommendations for favourite translated books written by women that you've read recently, I would absolutely love to know. Let's start with my favourite series of all time. This series is one that has had a chokehold on me since 2021 when I read the first book for the first time, and that series is the Neapolitan Quartet by Elena Ferrante. So there are 4 books, obviously, quartet, in this series, and they are My Brilliant Friend, The Story of a New Name, Those Who Leave and Those Who Stay, and The Story of the Lost Child. Every single one of these books is a 5-star read for me, and I reread them earlier this year as well for the first time, and rereading them genuinely solidified it as one of the greatest literary works which I have ever had the privilege to read. It has been translated enormously well by Anne Goldstein, who has translated all of Elena Ferrante's books, and I am just in awe of the fact that this project exists. The Neapolitan Quartet is a sweeping account of 2 friends who grow up in post-war Naples. These friends are Elena, who is the narrator of the story, and the inciting incident of all 4 of the books is when her best friend for years and years, Lila, suddenly goes missing in her old age, and Elena is trying to sort of recount everything that happened during their many years of knowing each other and being friends and having falling outs and going through different stages of life alongside one another, so that she has these memories of Lila when Lila is no longer there to share them with her. At least that's the premise on which the first book starts. We go through many iterations of that throughout the series, but that's the basic sort of thing. I think the reason why this is considered, not just by me, but by critics as well, as one of the foremost works of fiction in the 21st century, is that it spans such a long period of time, but it really goes into exceptional detail in every single part of these characters' lives and how they interact with each other and with the world, with the changing world around them. The second half of the 20th century being extremely provocative time to write about. And I am just so in awe of how Elena Ferrante captures so many different aspects of being a woman, or the female experience even. And it's so remarkable that anyone has managed to do that. The intricacies, the doubts, the really nasty stuff, the ways in which misogyny influences women, not even just in their relationships with men, but also with their relationship with each other. And it's just a fantastic, fantastic story. I recommend reading the entire series. It is a great summer read as well, and I know a lot of people are in summer at the moment. I know I look like I'm in summer, but I am in winter. It's just a surprisingly warm day for August, so I'm just clapping and cheering about that. I highly, highly recommend this book to literally everyone, whether it sounds like something that you would be interested in reading or not. I think even if you don't like it, it challenges you in a specific way, so I think it's good to be challenged. My second recommendation for this video is my favourite translated book that I have read so far this year, which is Drive Your Plow Over the Bones of the Dead by Olga Tokarczuk. Olga Tokarczuk is a Polish writer who recently won the Nobel Prize for Literature, and I mean, just based on this book, I haven't read any of her other books, but I do plan to read them later in the month. So just based on that book, I'm like, she deserved. She needs it. We can't just have someone with that much talent walking around not waving a Nobel Prize in their hand, you know? It doesn't work that way, it's wrong. Drive Your Plow is about this wacky old woman who lives in a very small, isolated Polish town, and The inciting incident of the book is where somebody suddenly in the middle of the winter dies, and it's just her and her neighbor who are there to see the body. And then the rest of the book is sort of other people in the town also mysteriously dying, and they sort of try to figure out why. And there's also like these subplots about environmentalism and animal rights and astrology, which just ticks every single box that I possibly have. So it was just so good. The humor is so dark, the character is so weird. I love spending time in her head because she's just so odd. It's such an entertaining book, but it's still so well researched and so well done. Apparently when it was published in Poland in like 2006, 2007, around that time, it was incredibly controversial because it is apparently very taboo, the sort of topics that she writes about, which makes me love tokarczuk even more. So I mean, I just have praise for this book and for tokarczuk in general. I just love the way in which she interacts with the literary sphere. So I'm so excited to read some more of her books, hopefully in the coming month, but I'll talk about that towards the end of the video where I show you my TBR for August as well. Next up is The Vegetarian by Han Kang, which is another Nobel Prize laureate. So lots of Nobel Prize winners here. Get this, Nobel Prize winners write fucking great books. Who knew? Han Kang wrote Vegetarian as a sort of satire about how people react to other people saying that they are vegetarian or that they no longer want to eat meat, and how ingrained food is in culture and everyday life and relationships and communities, and how distancing yourself from a community because of the way that you eat can be extremely isolating and even destructive in many different ways. This book actually never follows the character who decides to become a vegetarian. It follows some of the people in her life, like her husband or her sister. And it's just so fascinating to see the different perspectives that these different people have and like the amount of empathy that they have or don't have for her. And then the weird part of this book is like as her mental health starts declining, it's kind of like she's turning into a plant. But the book takes a little bit of like a strange turn. I think it's like edging into magical realism, but not quite. But it's so well done. I think about this book a lot because I'm vegan, so it's very relevant, I think, in many ways for me. But I also just think the way in which Han Kang talks about it in the book, and even the way in which Deborah Smith, her translator, translated it into English is so well done, so memorable. I have not read any of other of Han Kang's work yet, but I absolutely plan to, but I really struggle to find them, so I mean, fingers crossed I'll be able to do that at some point. But yeah, if you have any Han Kang recommendations, I would love to get them, please. This next book I fear I will be recommending until the day I drop dead, and that is Happening by Annie Ernaux, which is Annie Ernaux's account of an abortion that she had in 1960s Paris, which she wrote almost 30 years after the fact. It is one of the most harrowing, painful, beautiful memoirs that I have ever read, and I think about it constantly. Annie Ernaux has such a talent for writing something very objectively, but that you can see is still a very painful sort of thing for her, even though she's had many years in which those scars could have healed. It's so geniusly written because she draws on both her memories but also her diary entries from that time, and there are lots of sections in which she also acknowledges the different ways in which her experience since the abortion have really colored maybe her thoughts or memories or feelings surrounding the entire event. And I just think that if somebody can write something like this that's so universal and yet so personal at the same time, then they too deserve a Nobel Prize, which is exactly what Annie Ernaux has won. So congratulations to Annie Ernaux. She deserved that Nobel Prize. I have read 2 other books by Annie Ernaux as well and absolutely love them. I'm actually currently reading one of her books as well, and I will also talk about that towards the end of the video, so stay tuned. Then we've got The Chandelier by Clarice Lispector, who is a Ukrainian writer who moved to Brazil when she was very young and who wrote in Brazilian Portuguese. So it's a very interesting combination of experiences that she had in her personal life. I've only read one of her fiction works before, and that is The Chandelier, and I absolutely adored it. It is about a young girl called Virginia who grows up on a farm in rural Brazil. It's a very elusive sort of book in the sense that you're not sure what's real and what she's imagining because she's a child and she's like doing imaginative play. I found it really fascinating though, because the sort of blend between those things really made it feel like a dream while you were reading it. And I liked that, because if you think back up to how things were when you were a child, a lot of those things have a sort of dreamlike quality, or at least they do for me. And I found that extremely relatable. And the story also follows her as she grows up and eventually goes to live in the city as an adult. And I think just the way in which Clarice Lispector writes is like she's grabbing onto your arm and sort of pulling you along with her, but at the same time she's sort of like singing you a very eerie lullaby. And I love that feeling. She just does it so well, and I'm so excited to read literally anything else that I can get my hands on that she's written. I have been told that the chandelier is maybe a very weird place to begin with Clarice Lispector, especially if somebody is not used to like a sort of stream of consciousness writing style. So bear that in mind if you are a little bit unsure about her writing style, and maybe try something shorter like Agua Viva or An Apprenticeship or The Book of Pleasures. I think those are probably better places to start, but where I started was a perfect place for me particularly. So if you have a love for like modernism or stream of consciousness writing, I think The Chandelier is a good place to start with Lispector's work. Then we've got a memoir which I finished earlier this year, The Copenhagen Trilogy by Tove Ditlevsen. This is a collection of 3 short memoirs that she wrote, which were called Childhood, Youth and Dependency. And they are about her experiences growing up impoverished in Copenhagen and the different men with which she has relationships and the different ways in which she interacts with her family and with her friends and with school. And also, most importantly almost, how she finds refuge in her writing, particularly in poetry. It was very similar in some ways to Just Kids by Patti Smith, because it had a lot to do with, like I said, the life of an artist and different ways in which you can work in order to become published or a serious artist. There are definitely things that are not similar. For example, in her adult life, she becomes addicted to different substances, and it's quite tough to read those sections of the book as well. And also knowing that she eventually died of substance abuse is really like, it gives a different tone to the book for sure. But it is still a beautifully written memoir, and you can see how much tenderness and empathy she has for her younger self when she's writing those sections of her life story. Now we've got Kim Jiyoung, born 1982, by nam-joo. This is the story of a woman named Kim Jiyoung, who is sort of supposed to be like the representation of the South Korean millennial women, because in the year 1982, most women who were born then were called Kim Jiyoung. And at the beginning of the book, we see where she is experiencing a mental breakdown, and then it cuts back to the beginning of her life, and we follow her through her childhood, adolescence, and adulthood, and see the different ways in which instances of misogyny have really affected her life. And the very nice thing about this book as well is that there is a footnote if something happens to her, like for example, she's followed home when she's walking in the dark, or she's passed over for a promotion, or she's not allowed to study a certain subject or something like that. There's a statistic that Cho Nam-joo will reference at the end of the page and be like, this happened to this amount of women in South Korea during the 90s or something like that. It's really fascinating to see these things sort of backed up by sociology. And I think it's a really fascinating way in which to structure a novel. And apparently, Cho Nam-joo wrote this book extremely quickly. I think she wrote it in like 2 months or something like that, because she said that the life of Kim Jiyoung really mirrored the things that she experienced, especially at that time when she had very recently had a baby, and the different ways in which that affected her life and completely changed the way in which she had to live and interact with the world and with her husband and with her family and with her co-workers and all those sorts of things. So it's really, really fascinating to read this book with all of that context, because you can just feel sort of the different ways in which misogyny manifests itself in a different society. And I think it's really interesting to know that, because then you can have a lot more empathy for the different ways in which people experience things like misogyny or abuse or things like that. And you can really just feel more for them and perhaps understand it on a deeper level, especially if you're experiencing it through fiction, which I still think is one of the best ways in which to learn about something new. And perhaps especially in a case like this, where you can become really attached or like caring about a character, and you want them to succeed and you want them to do better, but that the circumstances in which they find themselves just don't allow that, and part of those circumstances are completely manufactured. So it's an amazing book to read. It will make you extremely angry, so be prepared for that, but it is still a very rewarding read in its own right. And then the last book that I want to recommend as something that I've already read and loved is one that I finished literally like 2 days ago, which is The Dry Heart by Natalia Ginzburg. This is a book that was originally published in Italian, and it is about a woman who shoots her husband. So, full marks already. Literally on the first page of the book, the main character of the book shoots her husband, and the rest of the book we sort of find out the reasons why, like all these little instances that sort of all crept up on her and just caused her to have this extremely, I would say, justifiable reaction. It's a fantastically written book. It's so like simmering in a way. I said on my Instagram it sort of felt like a combination between Ferrante and Segar, and I still stand by that. I really enjoyed it. It's like got these very hot, sweaty vibes that a Segar novel has, but also this really like annoyed, I want to say maybe not misandrist, but maybe vibe that Elena Ferrante's novels have as well. And I mean, is that such a bad thing? Has misandry ever killed someone? Maybe, but I don't think so. Not as much as misogyny has killed people. I had put off reading The Dry Heart for absolute ages because people told me I would love it. And I was scared that I wouldn't, but I did. So I have to hand it to them. People know what my taste is. So I'm very grateful for the people who I have in my reading circle for actually recommending me books that I genuinely do like. So take this as your sign to read The Dry Heart. It's very short as well. It's like just over 100 pages, so you can read it very quickly, and I'm definitely planning on rereading it in the summer because it's a very summery book, I think. I mean, shooting your husband is very summer energy, so what now? And then it is time for me to talk about the books that I'm currently reading and that I'm also planning on reading in the month of August. So the ones that I'm currently reading are here. Let's start with Choco's Smile. Choco's Smile is a short story collection by the South Korean author Choi Eun-young. I have only read the first story here, but I absolutely loved it. I can only see this being a 5-star read if the other short stories are of the same caliber. I first heard about this book a couple of years ago when Kali recommended it, and my friend actually gave this one to me in a book swap. I remember Kali said back then that a lot of people had compared Choi Eun-young's writing style to Sally Rooney's writing style, and I kind of agree with that. It's very sparse, the characters are very intellectual, but they're also extremely bad at communicating with each other. The relationship dynamics that it explores are very similar because it's like power dynamics that are being taken apart and like examined in detail, and I really like that. I just can't wait to keep reading this short story collection, and I really hope it continues to be as good as the first one was because I absolutely adored it. Then literally like this afternoon I started reading The Years by Annie Ernaux, and I'm absolutely hooked already. I had to like tell myself to stop reading this and come and film this video because I didn't want to leave this book behind. So as soon as I finished making this video, then I'm going straight back to this book. It is amazing. It's been described as sort of the memoir of a generation, and I kind of already see why. A lot of the things that Annie Ernaux describes in this book are kind of like things that people who grew up around the same time as she did and like went into their adult lives, experienced life and the different ways in which they had memories passed down to them. It's an amazing book so far. I mean, it's pretty thick for an Annie Ernaux book, so we'll see how I feel later, but so far I'm absolutely loving this. And then we've got one of my favourite authors, Elena Ferrante. This is a reread for me. The Days of Abandonment, probably one of my favourite books of all time. I have to say, besides the Neapolitan Quartet, this is my favourite Elena Ferrante book, and I have only read it once. Rereading it, it's even better. What can I say? Elena Ferrante only improves with age. It's so rewarding to be an Elena Ferrante fan because you never lose. It's amazing! I highly recommend that you join our club because it's a fantastic place to be. Days of Abandonment is about a woman named Olga who lives in Turin with her children and dog, and her husband has just abandoned their family. And it is about her sort of spiraling in the hot, sweaty summer months and the different ways in which she tries to deal with this thing that happened to her, this really like traumatic event in her life. I read this for the first time 3 years ago, and what can I say? 2022 Cara had taste because she rated this one 5 stars. So there you go. And then I've also got some other books that I'm planning on reading in the month of August. I actually have no idea what these books are about. Maybe like a little bit, but not really, because I don't like to know what books are about before I read them. But I know this one is by Olga tokarczuk, so that's why I want to read it. It's called Flights. Maybe you've heard of it, maybe you haven't, but I'm very excited to get to this one. Then we've got Reservoir Bitches by Dalia de la Cerda. Please help me out because I don't want to pronounce her name incorrectly. This is a short story collection about the different lives of Mexican women, and I believe they're all interconnected as well. I'm really in a short story mood because I recently finished Anything is Possible by Elizabeth Strout, and I loved that. And I had the best time like reading one short story every evening. So now I've continued that with Shoko's Smile, and once I finish Shoko's Smile, I want to move on to Reservoir Bitches. I highly recommend reading a short story by the fire every night. It's amazing. It's so vibey. I love it. Then we've got a book that absolutely everyone whose taste I trust absolutely adored, and that is On the Calculation of Volume by this author. I don't know how you pronounce her name, so I'm not going to offend her or any of my Nordic friends by trying to pronounce her name, but can you please let me know in the comments, because I do want to pronounce it correctly, and Google is extremely unhelpful with that. I think this one is about a woman who's like sort of stuck in a Groundhog Day, but make it lit fic, which sounds amazing, and I'm really looking forward to reading it. Then we've got a book that a lot of people absolutely hated, which makes me think I might like it. And it is Kairos by Jenny Erpenbeck, which I believe is about a German couple during the Cold War. I want to read the blurb. That's boring, because then I can't go into the book and be surprised. Well, that's more or less what I think happens. So, make of that what you will. Next up, we've got The Housekeeper and the Professor by Yoko Ogawa. I read The Memory Police by Yoko Ogawa earlier this year, and I didn't love it, but I think it's because the genre just wasn't really for me. I think this one is more lit ficky, and I think that will work a little bit better for me. It's quite short, so I might read it over a weekend, and it sounds interesting from the title, but I don't know anything about the book, so this is extremely unhelpful. Sorry. And then the last book that I've got on my list is Family Lexicon by Natalia Ginzburg. This book, obviously written by Natalia Ginzburg, so that's why I wanted to read it. It's my sister's copy, so thank you very much that I can borrow it. This book is apparently one that she won the Strega Prize for in Italy, which is like the most prestigious literary prize that you can win in Italy, which is awesome. I think The Story of the Lost Child by Elena Ferrante was nominated for it as well, so cool. I have no idea what this is about, once again. So that's why I never really do TBR videos, because I don't know what the books are about that I'm going to read. I just sort of have an idea and then I let it out of my brain just so that I can go into the book with fresh eyes, and hopefully it's just like normal expectations. But I did love The Dry Heart, so I really hope I love this one as well. Alright, so there are all my recommendations for Women in Translation Month, and what I'm reading and what I'm hoping to read during the month. Probably won't get to all of those books, let's be real, but I do hope to get to at least some of them because I'm really excited about all of them. So I really hope that it's going to be a good reading month in many, many ways. And I hope that all of you have a fantastic Women in Translation reading month as well. Please let me know what you're planning on reading and if you will be picking up any of the books that I spoke about today. Maybe we can like do a buddy read, or you can come and tell me what you thought about the books that I recommended if you do end up reading them. That's everything from me for today. Thanks so much for tuning in, and I'll see you again next week with another video. And until then, take care.